Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's just dive right into the hidden layers of today's tech sector. We all see those flashy headlines every single day about artificial intelligence, but what actually lies beneath the surface is this massive, incredibly complex structure of unseen financial and geopolitical forces. It's literally like a giant iceberg, and today we are going to map out the whole thing. $1.5 trillion. Now you might be wondering, what exactly does a staggering figure like that represent? Is it the market cap of some new tech giant? Maybe the global GDP of a small country? Actually, no, this number represents a massive, hidden pillar of the current AI boom. And the crazy part? It doesn't even show up on standard balance sheets. To really understand why this number is so absolutely crucial, we have to start right at the top of the iceberg.
The AI economics race. It feels like just yesterday the whole industry was asking, can AI actually do this? But man, we have moved way past that. Now we're in a fierce, all-out battle over deployable economics. We've officially transitioned from the old era of just chasing raw intelligence and benchmarks to a new era where cost per task and efficiency totally rule the game. A perfect example of this shift is Google's Gemini 3.7 Flash. They are targeting agent workloads at an introductory rate of just 75 cents per million input tokens. That is literally half the cost of previous versions.
And hey, it's not just about slashing token pricing, right? It is about sheer speed and efficiency. Take OpenAI, for example. They just launched their ultra-fast GPT 5.6 Soul model, and it's achieving 14 times faster inference at 750 tokens per second for real-time applications. That is incredibly fast. And alongside that speed, smart orchestration is drastically cutting costs across the board. Like Writer's new model can actually halve token consumption just by being smarter about how it manages multi-step tasks.
But here is where things get super interesting. There's a stark contrast in global strategies right now. The major US competitors, like OpenAI and Anthropic, are basically racing to the bottom, slashing their API prices left and right to capture market share. Meanwhile, over in China, DeepSeek is doing the exact opposite. They are raising their API prices by a whopping 1,100% to test enterprise willingness to pay for premium performance. It's a fascinating split in how these companies plan to make money.
Moving deeper, we hit layer 2, the trillion-dollar infrastructure debt. So what physically powers all of this software under the hood? Remember that $1.5 trillion figure we talked about at the very beginning? Well, get this. It has a twin. If you look at Alphabet, Microsoft, Amazon, NVIDIA, Oracle, and Meta, they've quietly accumulated nearly $1.5 trillion in purchase commitments for chips and energy. And on top of that, another $1.5 trillion in lease obligations for data centers. That is $3 trillion in total exposure, just quietly building up beneath the surface. So what does this all mean for us? Well, it completely redefines how we need to read big tech's financial health. These are what we call off-balance sheet commitments. Because this money is tied up in long-term contracts for assets like energy and silicon, rather than standard capital expenditures, this massive infrastructure risk simply doesn't appear as conventional debt. The actual risk lives directly inside these contracts. And as you might expect, all that spending is completely maxing out our physical capacity, which is creating a really intense supply chain squeeze. Over in China, SMIC is seeing their chip utilization hit 93.7%, and their quarterly profit literally tripled to $479.2 million. Here in the US, Applied Materials saw their revenue jump 25% to $9.1 billion. All this demand for advanced packaging and high-bandwidth memory, it's creating intense pricing pressure across the entire semiconductor landscape. Finally, let's dive into the darkest part of the iceberg. Layer 3, the deep water, security and sovereignty. Down here in the deep water, the focus really shifts away from just dollars and cents towards some heavily fractured global realities. The technology map itself is breaking apart geographically. For example, Apple has partnered with Alibaba to train a custom, proprietary AI model specifically for mainland China, because global tools like ChatGPT just aren't available there. And generative AI requires strict regulatory clearance. Companies are literally being forced to build sovereign, region-specific infrastructure just to operate. But here is the catch. As these incredibly powerful systems centralize more and more of our data, the vulnerabilities scale right up with them. Attackers recently breached the French tax agency, extracting records that expose 700,000 taxpayers. This is a perfect, though unfortunate, illustration of the severe danger of long-duration identity risk. When non-replaceable personal data sits in government databases, a single failure like this has catastrophic, lasting consequences for everyday people.
The geopolitical stakes have honestly gotten so high that national policies are radically shifting in response. A recent national security memorandum under Donald Trump has actually authorized private sector offensive cyber attacks specifically targeting criminal hackers. This is a very sharp departure from decades of previous U.S. policy limits, which historically restricted offensive cyber operations exclusively to government agencies.
And the tools needed to pull off these kinds of cyber operations are becoming widely accessible all over the globe. China's ZAI just unveiled GLM 5.3. This is an open weights model that claims near-frontier cybersecurity performance, scoring an 84.5% on CyberGim. So advanced AI cyber capabilities are expanding everywhere. This fundamentally changes the landscape of both attack and defense, which makes structural guardrails for dual-use AI absolutely critical moving forward.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. We spend so much time debating the intelligence and the security risks of the AI models themselves, right? But looking at this whole iceberg, I want to leave you with this question to chew on. Is the real risk of the AI boom the technology itself? Or is it those hidden trillion-dollar contracts quietly propping the entire system up from below? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this helps you look at the tech sector in a whole new light.